Hi, and welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. My name is Kristen Jones. And as always, thank you so much for joining me this week. So, one of the things that I think is a challenge, and it is a challenge for me big time. And actually, this podcast is starting a half an hour late. And a part of the reason why it's starting a half hour late is that I sometimes am a victim. And right now I have been not a victim, but a victim to myself of not communicating and not asking for help when I need it, and just kind of expecting that, well, I'll just figure it out, or even better, I'll just walk away. Like, it's too hard, I can't figure it out. I'm just gonna, like, this is too hard, I'm gonna walk away. And so I really want everyone to really listen and listen to our guest that we have today. We have a very special guest who is going to be talking about her experience, not only in the 21-day Breakthrough Jumpstart program that I offer. Our next session of that starts on October 4th. And but also her experience in the Breakthrough membership and kind of what she's learned. And so we're going to talk about all the things about those two programs, in addition to just what she's learned, not only about asking for help, but then also finding that help and then taking it and running with it and making it absolutely the best thing for her. So, without further ado, oh, wait a minute, forgot. Those of you who are listening on the podcast, hold on a minute. Apologize. If you are not in the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community on Facebook, that's where we're coming from. That's where we always do our live broadcasts of the podcast. www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough. And again, amazing community. We have a lot of offshoots of this community, a lot of smaller Facebook groups that you can become a part of as a part of this group. And so I really want to encourage you that if you are not a member of the group and you're listening to this on a podcast, maybe a friend recommended it, maybe you just came across us on Spotify, maybe you looked up emotional eating, and there I was. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you taking the time to just to listen and be open-minded. I know time is so valuable, and it's a commodity that we just don't get back. And so I respect and appreciate your taking the time to listen, and always hoping that I provide value and provide something that you can take away and you can implement in your life right away. That's always one of the things that I think is so important, is that when we talk about these things, we don't want to just talk about theoretical. We want strategies. We want, what can I do right now? What can I do at my next meal? So I hope that we offer that. And I'm almost 100% positive that I know Melissa's going to talk about some things that absolutely many of you will be able to take and use right away to help yourselves in dealing and addressing your emotional eating, as well as starting to lose weight. So, topic of the podcast today, let's get to it, is how asking for help can change your life. So today I have Melissa Stafford, who is I'm going to let her introduce herself. She has a plethora of things that she does. She is a business owner and a mom and a dog mom. We talk about our dog, we bond over our dogs. But more importantly, she has really taken, in the last, I'd say probably four months or so, really taken control of her, just her thoughts, her emotions, her eating, and has just made some pretty huge and significant changes in her life that are really proving to be really life-changing for her. So I'm going to let her, before I just go and lather on about this, I'm going to let Melissa introduce herself. And so, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind, welcome to the podcast. Super happy that you're here. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the community, as well as share kind of how you found us, that would be, I would love to hear about that.
You did such a great job. I don't know how much more I can say. No, you're so sweet. So yeah, exactly like what Kristen said. So I joined about 4 months ago, and wife, we're going on 25 years. Our son just turned 16. We own a family business. So yeah, there's lots going on. It's super busy, just like everybody else. my journey with realizing that I had an issue with emotional eating started really in January. I had always struggled with my weight, always the next diet, always the next big thing, always whatever. So we spent it, my husband and I laugh, we say we're probably of the very small percentage of people during the year 2000 who actually lost weight instead of gained it. He did way better than I did. We actually started a ketogenic diet, and so he lost over 100 pounds and he has been able to maintain that. Yeah, he looks great. I did not do as well with it because the diet wasn't my issue. Where the diet was, that was his issue. Like, he can walk away from junk food and he has no problem. I'm not that. Like, no, my issue obviously ultimately ended up being emotional eating. So in January of this year, I belong to a great gym. The trainers and the coaches are fantastic. But I couldn't exercise enough and I couldn't control my ketogenic diet enough to lose the weight that I had kind of let creep on a little bit fourth quarter of last year. Fourth quarter is our busiest quarter of the entire year. So I'm anticipating it'll probably happen again this year. That's why I said when we talked last week, I'm like, I anticipate I'm going to do the 21 day again, first or second quarter of 22, just because I think I'm going to need a refresher at that point. But going back in January of the year, I realized I can't exercise enough. I can't control it enough. I can't continue to try to white knuckle it through. And white knuckling it, that means that something's not right. So I sort of started looking into, okay, what is intuitive eating? What is emotional eating? What is like, is that maybe the issue? So I had sort of just passively followed some individuals and looked into a program that ultimately was not going to fit my needs. And then I came across your information, and that was probably in like late January, early February. So I started listening to the podcasts, and the more I listened and the more I heard, the more I realized this might actually be the root of my problem. Like, my thoughts might be the root. So like you said, I kind of went about it a little differently. So I had, listened to the podcast, gone back, listened to multiple podcasts, and then realized, okay, like, this is all starting to make sense. I think I need to join the membership. So I think I need to become a membership of the group. So when I did that, got into the group, got into the coaching calls, did the homework, all of that, the postings, the group on Facebook, and ultimately through that lost about 10 pounds because it was so valuable to sit and be part of those coaching calls and, go through the exercises, but you really have to experience it. Like, you really, like, the rubber meets the road when you're out with your friends and somebody orders the big appetizer plate. Did you, like, I was always a big proponent of, well, I'm going to pre-eat before we go to dinner so then I'm not hungry when we go out. Well, then somebody orders the big appetizer and there you are eating the big appetizer. You know what I mean? So it's learning those types of things. Like, nope, you don't have to do that. But if you consume your water that you're supposed to for the day, you have a lot more control than if you just launch yourself into that situation. So had lost about 10 pounds from joining the membership. And then when we did the 21 days, so 2 sessions ago, I think it was, when we did the 21 day, that was like rocket ship. Like, that really, for me personally, I lost another 7 in those 21 days. And I'm able to not only keep that off, but like still continuing to lose a couple ounces here and there, and then you bounce back, but then a couple ounces here and there. And then it's not linear. It's not a linear thing. I know somebody had posted in the group about, I'm disappointed because I only lost a half a pound, but it's like, yeah, but next week you might lose a pound and a half. Because it's not a linear thing. So the 21 day was huge for me. That dug up just a ton of emotion. That dug up just a ton of issues that I now realize that I was too young to carry. Like I should have never been carrying what I was carrying for all of those years, and even into adulthood, even into, most recently as a couple months ago, like I don't have to carry that anymore. And it's not perfect. CTFAR, like that, I think literally I think about that probably 3 times a day. Like, excuse me, is, what are the circumstances? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? What are, is this legitimate, or is this something that I'm just responding to? Yesterday I did a terrible job. I'll admit it. We were working, we were doing production, and we got home about 3:00. We worked through lunch, and I was looking at something on my husband's social media feed, and I grabbed a bag of cookies, and before I knew it, that half a bag of cookies was gone. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to feel shame about what I just did. I don't love what I just did, but now is the time to not feel shame, but make my next best choice.
Right.
And my next best choice is to zip up this bag and put it away, and now have something nutritious for dinner, and then stay out of the kitchen. That's my next best choice. And then that's the choice that I made. And I would not have been able to do that 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I would have shamed myself for doing that. And then I would have been like, oh, well, you blew it. So why don't you finish up that half pint of ice cream and those frosted animal cookies and that 3/4 bag of Cheetos? Like, garbage, I don't even really enjoy all that much anyway, but it's like, you throw your hands up because it's like, well, I've already blown it. So why not just start over tomorrow? And it's like, nope, that's where you stop, or that's where I stop. That's where I stop and say, nope, what's my next best choice? And my next best choice is to not do that, but my next best choice is to put it all away and make that good decision. And don't sit and shame myself for the goofy thing that I just did.
Right. Exactly. So and I remember I love, I want to clarify this because it's something that you and I have talked about. We actually had a coaching call about it. It was if you remember, it was the where you wanted to go take a walk. Remember when we talked about that you wanted to take the walk and it was raining. So I'm gonna have, this is something I really, and I'm gonna let Melissa teach this, because this is something that we had a call about, and it was kind of the reaction of like, well, what do I do when I'm faced with this? Like, I can feel the emotion there and I want to eat the whole pantry. And so Melissa, do you want to share kind of what happened, and then briefly what happened, and then what we discussed about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of those, like, that was a breakthrough moment. Like that was like, okay, now it makes sense, because you learn this stuff in coaching calls until you actually actively address it. It makes sense, but it doesn't always make sense. So it was like a blow up with my teenage son. I'm sure that was probably it for that day, because that's any random day is, that's our house. So I was feeling just the anxiousness, anger, the sadness, whatever it was, over the miscommunication that I had. And I was standing in front of the pantry, deciding how I was going to eat the feelings away, because it was raining outside. So I couldn't go for a walk. Like I couldn't get out. I couldn't do the thing that I knew would help in that moment. And your exact words were, just sit with it. Like next time, just sit with it. And I guarantee anywhere from 10 to 90 seconds, it's going to be gone. And it's like, oh yeah. So now, when that does happen, I don't go to the pantry. I just sit with it. And I have to say, the biggest thing about that is when you go to the pantry, or when I'm sorry that I'm saying you, I want to say me. So when I feel that feeling, whatever it is, the anger, the frustration, the exhaustion, the whatever it is, when I sit with it and I don't eat it, and I don't try to bury it with food, I don't give my power away. I
Absolutely.
maintain my power.
Hmm.
And that's really, and I hate to use the word powerful again, but it's really when you sit there with it and you just address it and you let it pass and you take that deep breath, but you maintain your power because you're not covering that power up with something else.
Right. Exactly.
Really, it's a really positive emotion that comes when you can just work through it in that way
Right.
versus burying it with food.
Hmm.
And
Because
food, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then there's the other feelings that come on top, like the shame that you talked about. So it's not just about that now I've given my power away, but now I feel bad about that. So then that causes, okay, well, let's just, as you say, we've done it. Let's just go all in. Let's not stop it. Now we just have to make ourselves feel better. And so, yeah, it's recognizing that and being like, oh, okay, this is the more powerful choice that I can make.
Right. And even so I don't so much weigh myself every day anymore. Now it's pretty much every other day, every third day, maybe just a couple times a week. But there'll be times where I'll weigh myself and I'll be like, oh, I really feel like it shouldn't be that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, nope, now you're up and you're weighing yourself, and now you're going to make your next best choice.
Right.
So even when those opportunities for maybe a negative emotion creep in, you just have to tell your primal brain to sort of shut up and just, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but you just have to be like, nope, I'm in control here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you had said in the very beginning, and I'm sure you say this all the time, but you really have to, those thought patterns are such a rut.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to be in the rut of those thought patterns. I often think of because I grew up on a farm and we had a lot of dirt roads, and I think of kind of the roads where like grass is growing in the middle, but you see those tire tracks, and it's like, no, we're gonna change that, and we're gonna change that road, and we're gonna change that route. And
right.
and when I first joined the membership group, I had really thought, okay, by August 1, I want to meet my weight goal. That was sort of the goal that I had put for myself. August 1, I was going to be good. That was it. Well, then I got to the end of July and I got into August, and I'm like, oh, I really feel like I need just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then got into September, and then that's when I emailed you and said, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I'm there, and it's not perfect and it's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Some days are pretty, some days are prettier than others.
Right.
But I feel like I've got a handle on this. I don't want to say I have control over it, because
Mm-hmm.
I think it will always be my natural tendency to let my primal brain be like, oh, we need those cookies, and
right.
there's that ice cream, and it's like, nope, we don't need that. We're good.
Right.
We're good.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. That is that. And you said that so well about that, that we're always going to, that one of the things that is so important to remember, for everybody to remember, is that, like what we did last week in the thought challenge, of really looking at that one thought that keeps, kind of keeps coming up, and then you keep saying no to it, and you keep saying, no, we don't do that anymore. But the thought keeps coming. And one of the things we have to remember is the thought's going to keep coming, and it's going to keep coming, and it's going to keep coming. And that's okay. That's your brain doing what it's supposed to be doing. You get to decide how you want to react to it. You get to decide, do I want to buy in, or do I want to say, no, this is not the direction that I'm going in. This is not how, and then you have to tell it over and over. And I'm not going to be swayed. I'm not going to feel badly because that thought keeps coming up, because my brain's working correctly, but you have the power. And as Melissa said, having that power and knowing I have the power to make the decision that's going to be best for me. And will I always make it? No, not always, but we do when it doesn't happen, we do the next best thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I think that the journal too, I have my journal over here. That is, it's such a remarkable thing. And it's so important, because when you write everything down, you have your plan, you have your roadmap. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that you may not deviate from it. But when I do deviate from it, I always think, okay, is this an emotional decision, or is this a logical decision?
Mhm,
So it's been a crazy day. I'm going to skip my workout. Okay. Is that an emotional decision or is that a logical decision? So that plays into, you know, when I'm going to deviate from the plan that I made the night before, the morning of, or whatever it is. That's part of it that plays into it too, is because when you stop and you ask yourself those questions and you really make yourself answer,
mhm.
that's, you hold yourself to task in that way. And that's when
Right.
you can kind of tell, okay, is this the primal brain who's trying to tell you you should
Mhm.
sit on the couch and not do something? Or is this like, no, are you genuinely exhausted and you might pull a muscle? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it could go either way. And
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
what you have to just sort of flush out when you're, you know, deciding to deviate from whatever that plan is.
Yeah. So did you find, I would love to hear you kind of comment on, did you find that the actual writing process, the actual like doing essentially doing the work of not just like we get, but sometimes people just be like, oh, I thought about it. Like I'm thinking about it. But it's like, no, you've got to get those thoughts down on paper because it makes them real. It makes them like a real thing. And then you can decide what you want to do with them. Do you want to buy into them? Do you want to, deviate away from them? What do you want to do with them? But it's getting them out of your head so they're not banging around, causing more thoughts to come and more thoughts that maybe aren't going to be to your advantage.
And I actually I take from the planner and I use my production planner. So I take a lot of that from there and I put it in there. So it's just all in one place that way.
Mhm, mhm,
So I put it all in there like, okay, I'm going to go and take a yoga class at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I literally write it on there. You know,
mhm.
for breakfast, this is what my plan is. For lunch, this is what the plan is. And it's all in there in that plan. If anybody were to ever look at that, they'd think she's crazy, but it's all right there. And then I can check it off, you know,
Mhm,
then I've got it there. It's easy. I'll go ahead and check it off. But then it stops a lot of the emotion. But another thing that I find that it stops, because I typically do mine the night before,
mhm,
I don't feel as overwhelmed because I've checked off what I have. And if everything I have on that list, if I can move it to a different day and that makes more sense, then I'll go ahead and move something to a different day, whatever it might be. But then it's like, I can, what's the word I'm looking for? I can sort of just encompass the feeling of being overwhelmed, because
mhm.
I think any of us can sit and think about all the things we could be doing right now. I could
Mhm.
be doing this, I could be doing that. But if I physically have it written down and it doesn't make it on that day, or it's something that kind of pops in, maybe I push it to a different day, or I push it off to the side and see where I can work that in.
Mhm.
So it really, that helps from the standpoint of being overwhelmed, because when you're overwhelmed, that's enough for me personally, that's a trigger. Like that's a
Absolutely.
trigger for me to, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I might as well just go have a bowl of popcorn, you
Mhm.
know, and not just any popcorn, but it's got to be like the caramel crunch popcorn.
Right.
That's, you know, I mean, it's got to be like the crazy
Right.
good stuff, you know?
Right.
So that has really helped to just slowing down and not doing everything in a day is okay. We don't
Mhm.
have to shoulder everything.
Right.
And I'm saying we again. I don't have to shoulder everything. I don't have to be the one who plans the meals every day, every single week. If
Mhm.
we have a frozen dinner of some sort, then that's what it's going to be, and it's okay for us to have that. The other part of this whole thing too is prior to really probably the last 6 or so weeks, I was a religious MyFitnessPal. Like I logged everything.
Right.
Everything went in there. How many calories do I have? Like I would play the calorie game.
Mhm.
Okay, but I really exercised this, so I ran this deficiency. So I'm, kind of playing with those numbers. I actually canceled my MyFitnessPal subscription because I don't need it.
Right.
I
Right.
I just eat what makes sense, and
Mhm.
I eat until I'm full, and
Mhm.
I hopefully don't make silly decisions like grabbing a bag of cookies.
Mm.
But if I do, then you make that decision. But I don't log any of my meals anymore. I
Right.
don't do I don't pay for that subscription for that because I don't need it. And I don't need to do okay, well, I wore off this many calories doing this class. So now I've got this, so I can probably have that. And that honestly, right there, that's an exhausting game to play. It's just exhausting.
Yeah.
So
would you tell, because there's one other story I want you to tell is the time that you went, the coconut shrimp, the time where you went to dinner and you ordered exactly what I think it was the first time. Do you remember you were with a group of friends?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was one of the first times that I didn't pre-eat before we, went out to eat. So that was there's so many things over the past couple months that have been such huge breakthroughs, but that was another thing, like, yeah, I'm a pre-eater. Okay. I'm not going to pre-eat anymore. But really going out to eat with a group of friends and just being like, I'm going to order whatever I want. And what I wanted that night was coconut shrimp. And although it ultimately had everything to do with the coconut shrimp, it had nothing to do with the coconut shrimp because I made my perspective about enjoying my time with my friends. And it wasn't about the food. It wasn't about the drinks. It wasn't about any of that. It was about spending time with people that I love and care about, and then having this really great meal. But I made the meal secondary. And I'm finding now that has become a habit. So when our group does go out, I'm so looking forward to and now that we're getting into fall and everybody's schedule's changing, we don't have the summer schedules that we had. So we get together less than what we did over the summer. Now it's even more so about, I'm just going to get together with this amazing group of people and I'm going to spend anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours with them. And whatever I eat, because it's not about that food, but it's about the time that I'm spending with these individuals.
Right.
I am the first one to order a big pitcher of water though, too. I do have to say that. I'm like, okay, bring the pitcher of water down here.
And I think you also, if I remember correctly, you told me that was one of the first times, because you had talked about like watching certain friends of yours just like be halfway through their meal and just like pushing their plates away. And you were like, how do they do that? And I remember you talking about the coconut shrimp and you were like, and I left it, like I got to a point where I was like, oh, I don't need to eat anymore. And so you stopped eating. And I don't know if you had it packed up or if you gave it to other people, but I remember you saying, oh my gosh, I can't, that's like the first time I've ever done that, where I actually did what I always wanted to be able to do.
And it's like, I don't even think about it. We've got this great little breakfast place that we like to go to, and they do these amazing omelets. And then there's the hash browns and the toast and all of that. And when we go, I typically eat maybe a third or maybe a half of the omelet. I bring the hash browns home for my son because he loves them. And I'm just not a big potato eater anyway. But it's so easy just to go and enjoy. And when you don't have, when I don't have when I'm not carrying the emotions around with me, the food is so much more enjoyable. It's just food. And one of the things that you had said, there's nothing's good or bad. Right. It just is. Now there are things that are obviously more nutritious for your body, and that goes without saying. But in and of itself, I remember one of our first calls where you said, I've got chips and I've got ice cream and I've got this stuff in my house and I don't binge on it. And I just remembered thinking, I want that. I want to be able to do that. And we do. We've got the frosted animal cookies. We've got the chips. We've got all of that. And some days aren't great. Some days I do get into stuff, and some days I do that, but then I just make my next best decision. And every time something like that happens for me, it's just another learning experience. Right. There's no failure. It's never an issue of failure. It's always an issue of, okay, what did I learn from it? And then what decision am I going to make differently now in this moment, not next time, not
Right.
10 minutes from now, but right now, what decision am I going to make differently?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Melissa, this has been so good. Thank you so much for sharing. So what I would love for if you could just if there was anybody out there that was thinking like, "Oh, I don't know about this," because I know a lot of people have been asking. So y'all have been putting up, a lot of information asking people about, if they're interested in learning about the 21 days, just because it's been such a hugely successful program. And so I wanted to make it available to people. And so, if there was somebody out there who was like on the fence, like, I don't know about the money. I don't know if that's, if it's worth it. Is there any guarantee, blah, 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 blah. What would you say to somebody? What would your advice be to somebody who's kind of on the fence and not doesn't really know if it's something that they need, or they're feeling like, I don't know if I should, maybe I should just continue to try it on my own. What should I do? So what would you say?
So my response to that is, how has that gotten you so far? You
Mhm.
know, that's a question that you have to answer for yourself, is how has, I like to call it white knuckling it.
Mhm.
So how has that gotten you so far? And the other part for me, I think with the 21 day was just, I realized you're going to do some hard work. Like you're
Mhm.
going to do some emotionally, like the first week was kind of, I felt like, no pun intended, but it was kind of a cakewalk. Like it was
Right.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then the second week, it got a little bit harder and it got a little bit more emotional.
Mhm.
And then I think that third week, I probably cried every 10 minutes. Like, okay, maybe it wasn't that, but I had a lot of things that I needed to just root up. I
Mhm.
needed to
Mhm.
root up a lot of things and
Mhm.
really sit and think about it and talk about things that I had been carrying for just, they weren't mine to carry.
Right.
There's so many things that we go through during our childhood that are terrible, and
Mhm.
they're never ours to carry.
Right.
And you don't realize that sometimes until you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or
Mhm.
70s.
Mhm.
You don't realize that what you went through does not have to define who you are, because you don't have to carry it anymore.
Right.
So you may not even realize that you're carrying something, because if somebody would have said to me 6 months ago, like, do this 21 day, it's, this is the result you're going to have, I may have been like, I don't think I'm carrying anything.
Mhm.
And then going through it, it's like, oh, I did not need to be like, I wish I would have known this 15 years ago.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I would have been able to do this kind of exercises that we did in 21 day, just because you just don't have to carry it.
Right.
And what, even things you don't realize you're carrying,
Mhm.
you're carrying.
Yeah.
And it's so freeing to just not have to do it anymore. And
Yeah.
and another thing that I've said, and I've said this in the group too, is, and like, I'm amazed at how little I eat.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so, like, I packed a lunch today and I think I had more like water bottles and like fluid hydration, hydro flasks and things like that I was carrying more so than even food, because you
Mhm.
just, when you have control, and I say that kind of loosely, but when you
Or awareness.
awareness,
Yeah.
that's a better way of saying it, because I don't like the word control, but when you have the awareness of what your habits are, when
Mhm.
you have that awareness, it's amazing how different things are.
Mhm.
And if somebody has any questions, please message me on Facebook. I'm happy to share anything. I believe in you. I believe in your program. There's no other program that I'm ever going to do other than this. You give away so much content. And I've said that, like, I think every time I've talked to you, I think I've said that to you. Being a business owner, like
Mhm.
and we give a lot away too. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, I'm so amazed at how much content you give away for free.
Mhm.
And that's when, after I had listened to the podcast and listened to everything that was out there, it's like, nope, this is somebody that I want to partner with because this is somebody that is very similar to who I am. And this program is very similar to who I am as an individual. And that's what made so much sense.
Right. Right.
So
well, thank
yeah,
you
do it. If you're on the fence, you're here, the money you're going to spend, you're going to save in food in the long run.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
I guarantee you that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
I used to have a lunch pail packed full of food and I used to snack through the entire day. And it's just, no, now I listen to Breakthrough Emotional Eating podcasts. And I'm
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for your time. I know that it was really, really valuable for everyone who's listening. I'm actually going to pop over to the group and see if we have anybody has any questions for Melissa. You absolutely can throw questions into the, let me make sure I can see this. Anybody have any questions? Oh, look, I can see this time. For those of you who remember last week when I couldn't see because I was wearing, I don't know, 2-week-old contacts and I could not see anything. Oh, I can actually see things now. Okay, let's see. Just want to make sure if anybody has any questions for Melissa, please go ahead and throw them in there. Oh, Roxy, I love having you live on here. All right. Okay, so no questions. All right. So, and again, you can throw questions up anytime in, if you want to message Melissa, it's Melissa with 2 L's and 1 S. That is the secret to her name, 2 L's and 1 S, and Stafford is your last name. So she'll absolutely answer any of your questions. If you have any of those, you can always reach out to me and I can connect you with her. So Melissa, thank you so much. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to spend this time with me, with the group, to be on the podcast. And it just makes me so happy to hear how you have really, like, you've taken everything and just like, you just ran with it. You just ran with it and you did what you needed to do. You did the work. And that's the thing, is if people come in and, so if anybody's out there wondering, well, I don't know if this will work. Well, it'll work if you do. Like it's not, you don't come in and it's just a, and as my cousin says, you're not on scholarship. It's like, you got to come in and you got to do the work. And sometimes the work is hard,
right.
But that work, when you don't do it, that's when you stay exactly where you are and there's no movement. So, we've got to just come in and commit to ourselves and love ourselves and be like, okay, I'm doing this for me. So,
and there's no better coach than you.
I'm
like I said, I'm ending the membership part, but I'm still going to be, posting and commenting and all of that. And I'll be back. Like I said, I fully anticipate I'll be doing the 21-day again next year, just because I think it's good from a refresher standpoint.
Right.
I'm also kind of interested, like, okay, is there anything else I can dig up? You know what I mean? Like, that's the other part of it too. It's like, okay, well, this is good, but is there another layer? Is there, is there anything else? And I had 17 pounds that I lost through this whole thing. We adopted our son 15 years ago, and I'm actually I weigh slightly less than I did when we adopted him 15 years ago. So it's amazing. It's incredible the role that emotions play in the entire eating and nutrition process. And there are days where I may not even work out at all. And you don't have to white knuckle it. Like, if there's anything I can leave is, if you're feeling like I got to hang on and I got to get through one more day and I've got to hang on to this diet. That's one of the biggest maybe red flags, or a flag just to say it's not working. That's not the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, y'all, that was awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today. This is absolutely one that you want to listen to, want to listen back to. If you have anybody that that needs to hear this kind of thing, absolutely recommend the podcast, or recommend the group, and then they can watch the live. It'll be released as a podcast next week. But thank you again, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for everyone in the group. I appreciate all of you so very much. So if you have any questions at all, if you are interested in learning anything more about the Jumpstart program, again, October 4th is our next launch date. If you have any questions about that, if you want to talk to me, if you want to just get any questions answered in the comments, you absolutely can put Jumpstart. If you are not comfortable putting Jumpstart in the comments, I totally get that. And in the post of this, for this video and for this podcast, I'm going to put a link to a direct message that you can just click on the link and you can direct message me. You can jump right in and message me and just let me know. I know some people are private. They don't necessarily want to make that public. Totally get that. So please reach out. No, to any of you, anyone. My messenger is always open to you. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you just need something, send me a message, reach out to me, and just know that, you know, I'll hook you up. We'll take care of things, and we'll see what your next steps are that you need to take. So again, please remember, that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. I was put on this earth to do this. I am absolutely 100% sure about that. So please know and take advantage of that, and use the resources that are here for you. All right, Melissa, have a fabulous evening, and the rest, everybody else, thank you so much. And I will see you all on the other side. So we'll see you next week. All right, take care, everyone. All right, Melissa, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Again,
Awesome.
thank you so much.